Welcome to Coached Soul, a podcast for a better you. Your host, Steve Hudgens, is a licensed professional counselor. On a non-emergency basis, you may contact them at area code 918-280-8690 or coachsoul.com to provide them with new topics, feedback, or to request an appearance on the show. And now, here's your host, Steve Hudgens.
Hey, welcome back to Coach Soul. What a great time to spend with Kenya last week about how women should be able to talk to men. And as always, you know, when we do podcasts like this, it's not to single out a single sex or a group or individual.
Yes.
It is how we're having to segment this podcast, because we could go on for hours talking about how to communicate with one another. And so we're having to break these podcasts down to where today, you know, men, we're in the spotlight, the hot seat, as we talk to Kenya about how men need to be able to communicate with women.
I'm so happy to be here. I feel like this co-creation has been so expensive to my soul. And from what I hear, for a lot of other people's souls, this is incredible.
It is incredible. And Kenya, you know, it's men are taught one emotion as we're growing up, and that's anger. And it's difficult because I understand as a man and as a trained therapist, but even in my personal life, I realize the importance that a man needs to be able to communicate with his woman, because that's the plug-in moment of how to help her feel emotionally connected with her man. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he, a conscious man, has the desire. He will have the desire to make your women feel safe to be, safe to communicate. But can he really do that when he feels attacked?
Now, you brought up an interesting coin phrase, because, you know, I think I'm walking around and I'm conscious, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of times I coined the phrase that men are stick shift cars. You got to push the clutch in for the man to shift the focus, to shift into another gear. And that's approach that I've coined because it just seems to resonate with me, because I'm telling my age. Not many people know how to drive a stick shift. And in the stick shift, it's not automatic. No. Automatic is a different type of car. Women are automatic cars because they're automatically do. And they're you're just multitasking all the time. But when men are focused, we have to push in the clutch, get that gear shifted in order to change our train of thought. And so when you mention that men need to be conscious, explain to men, because they think, well, I am conscious when she comes and talks to me. I am listening when she comes and talks to me. Explain a little bit or expound more about the consciousness of man and how he should be able to communicate with his woman.
Well, if you have been married to any amount of years, there are patterns already established in your relationship. So before she come in, you're thinking, oh, my sweetheart is coming. Or you might think, oh, there she comes. I did something wrong. So the energetics that comes before the word, before she comes in, it's as important as the word itself. And that's what I call conscious. Can you be conscious to be present in this moment? That's my invitation, not just for men, but for every woman. Can I hold myself to this moment versus what I've done or didn't do in the past? Can I hold my husband in this moment versus what he did or didn't do? Can I hold my wife in this moment and give this moment a chance? Otherwise, this moment has never a chance to be a conscious creation. In this moment, we are here sharing one breath, sharing this juice, this water, this wine, whatever you drink, this coffee. And we can talk and we can love or make love in a way that it is authentic to this moment. That's what I call consciousness. You're
Okay.
conscient.
You know, as a man, a lot of times we do get hyper focused. And a lot of times, most men who have these wounds from the past can get into a mode of being narcissistic where they're really hurt. And narcissism, a woman can be a narcissist as well. It's just a different form of narcissism, but it's self induced pain that they are still working in process. They're not working, they're just staying in that moment. And so when we communicate, it's important to be aware that a lot of times when women are speaking to us, that we need to listen, be aware,
100%.
and not to project, not to say, well, what did I do wrong? Because it goes back into what has our familia done to us to make us feel like we're not good
100%.
enough.
Well, Steve, it brings to me this feeling like, can we all agree that if people are coming to be more love and to have more love and companionship in their lives, can you assume the best, please?
Mm-hmm.
Can we make a deal that we're creating beauty and that we're releasing by desire, that we're surrendering by choice? Okay, now you don't understand what he did to me, what she did to me. Well, then you're literally embracing the victim suit. And in victim suit, you have no power. You have no word. You don't matter. So what is it going to be? Are you going to take it off the victim suit by choice and embrace the responsibility that this is your life and you are creating it with every thought, with every word, and with the awareness of, is my heart open or is my heart closed?
You know, men need to be conscious and aware of how we speak to a woman, because a lot of times our language could be very abrasive, abrupt, and abusive at times. And women are emotional. And if you are Star Trek and you're the old William Shatner or any kind of the old movies of Star Trek, you had Dr. Spock, half human, half Vulcan, but he was all logic. And Dr. Bones was very emotional and reactionary. And it's just funny to me, the humor of that reminds me of an unhealthy couple. You have logic and emotional, and like oil and vinegar, they don't work together because they get frustrated. So when I think about speaking to a woman, a man's got to tap into his ability to talk to her on an emotional level so that when she's speaking, he doesn't need to go into the fix it mode.
100%.
He needs to be, and there's two parts to this. And one of the things that we should have brought out in the podcast, how women speak to men, and then this podcast, how men speak to women, goes this way, that if she needs to come to him, there's that stick shift. Honey, do you have 5 minutes that we can talk? There's that clutch, taking that pause, get him
100%.
to shift, right?
Like pre-frame the need.
There you go.
Is this a good time?
Yes. And then when we shift the gear, it's, honey, I need to know. But then also the man needs to say, I need to know, honey, do I need to help you problem solve with this? Or do you just want me to listen?
100%.
And I think if both people would present this to each other, I meant to mention that in the last podcast with women, that if you preface it and help the men shift the gear to be more aware, because we do get hyper focused.
There's no question. I tell this to my husband all the time. I said, listen, he said, but again, we're trained. My husband and I were trained. Like he's he is a highly conscious man on his own, and he does his own thing. And ladies, listen, I have detached from the need to support him in his journey of healing, in his journey of growth, because I felt like, oh, but if I develop myself faster than him, then he will never catch up. Or if he develops himself faster than me, then I get behind. And it was fear-based emotion. So just notice when I decided to focus on me and my growth and surrender him to God, he started growing in the speed of light. I'm just letting you know. You focus on you. Your job is not to heal your parents, your mother, your dad, your husband. No, you focus on you. All energies on you. And please listen, men that's listening right now. There is no excuse in 2023 to be unconscious and unaware. Go get help. If you are rude, because my father, that's the way we talk in our family. No, that's no excuse. It's called emotionally abuse. It's not okay. It's not okay to be checked out. It's not okay to be emotionally unavailable unless you want to be alone and not have a relationship, period. So we all need to know, where are you at in the spectrum of relationship? Do you really want to learn how to communicate? Great. Many tools are available, such as those that we're just sharing right now.
And it's important to be able to give each other some grace and mercy when we're speaking to one another.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have to look at when a woman is elevated, I try to tell men to stop, pause for a moment. Because if you're elevated, it doesn't help her to feel safe. And one of the descriptions that I talk about in therapy, not to be derogatory, but to be able to explain it in a visual way. I hold up a bottle of water and I say, what do you see? The water is moving, but the bottle is steady. Women are like water. You're easily moved by emotion. And if the man is not there, she's all over the place.
Yeah.
So he is the bottom.
Well, she now needs to play both roles. And that does not work in a woman's nervous system.
And that is something that we need to talk about later too.
Yeah. Her nervous system just goes crazy. And now he labels her crazy.
Right.
Well, he was not emotionally available. He was not a confidence study presence. That's what I hear you saying. Many times we actually don't need to hear anything.
Right.
We just need to hear that he's there, not taking it personal, allowing us to just empty our bucket.
Well, when we were talking about our father wounds, mother wounds, I realize that, 20 years later, Steve is a different person. Because I realized what my attachment disorder was back in the day, that I did take things personally when she would brought them to me. And now I'm like, holy cow, how come I have this information now? Can I go back 20 years and change it? Well, I wouldn't be sitting here.
But that would be the making of Steve.
That is true.
Can you have grace on that? Because that's wonderful.
And now it's like when a woman gets elevated, I have to consciously be aware. Is it her being heightened her emotion due to a stimulus that created the situation? Or if it's about me, I need to hold space, allow her to vent, get it out, and then let me process what I need to process about that information before even responding.
100%. Well, there's something else I want to say to all women out there. Because our making is different. We have the need to express through our body, through our voice, through dancing, through Like if you haven't done that, like that's a huge work. I do this work. So you can come tell me it's somatic, right? The breathing, the movement of not everything needs to be dumped in your man, especially if he's not highly conscious in this moment. Have grace. Can he hold that container? Maybe what you need is just pick up your pillow and scream on your pillow, get a cold shower, then go talk to him. Like be aware of what can I bring to my world to help all this to move so I can have the outcome. What's my outcome? Am I even clear, or do I just want to get it out? Oh, my outcome is to communicate and create connection. Well, you probably don't need to tell him every single thing you need. You hear about him. Maybe you need to write a letter and then burn that letter.
We could go into a rabbit trail on that. And coming back to where, because I don't want to go down the rabbit trail, there's so much information that's there. Going back to how men need to be communicative to their women, it's not only in their voice.
Yes.
Not only in the tone or the frequency they present, as within the body language. Because if you're standing closed off to her, she's going to pick up on that, because women's got this sixth sense about themselves.
If you're not, the presence means presence and eye contact.
Right.
Okay. I love the way you put it. What are the steps? You're present. There's no cell phone. There's no kids. There's no pets. Eye contact. I am here. I can take it. That itself will move the needle like to an 8 in a relationship. Just that.
And part of communication on both ends, men communicating with women and women communicating with men, sometimes women are pretty good about communicating their needs, but men sometimes have difficulty in expressing their needs. Now, a lot of times they will, but in their communication, it's, honey, I need a hug. Let's have sex tonight. It's about the physical. And for a woman, it's like, oh, you just want the physical. That's all you want. And it's not about that. And it's for men, it's, you just can't jump in out of the frying pan into the fire and expect a woman to perform at your need. It takes time for a woman to warm up. She's like an oven. Sorry. You just got to turn the knobs just right. Just let her warm up to the temperature that you're needing. And that's playful. That is empowering her through the day. Hey, just want to check in. I miss your voice. I want to see how you're doing. It is positive affirmation. She comes home.
Create connection. Anything that creates genuine, authentic connection that she feels seen, heard, and loved.
Because communication to a woman is the same as sex to a man. That's how we connect. But men just can't jump in and expect a woman to jump in if she doesn't feel connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to explain to men, when a woman shuts down, it is not necessarily meaning that she's cheating on you.
Oh, no.
There's something there. When a man says something, does something, and a woman shuts down, there's something that's gone down.
When a woman shuts down, it was not in the last 24 hours.
Oh, good point.
I'm going to say that again. When a woman shuts down, she had it. It came, done.
But Kenya, we didn't flush that piece out either. When a woman talks to a man about that, and when a woman shuts down, it's because she's become frustrated because she doesn't feel like she's heard or listened to or feel safe. Was that an accurate statement?
100%.
Okay. So how can men, when they communicate with their woman, to help bring her out of that shutdown mode?
Give her space. Have legit interest in being in her in her brain, in her connection, in her heart, in her body. And when I say in her body, I don't mean inside her body.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure what's happening because sometimes guys are really checked out in their sensory acuity, like oh, I didn't notice that,
Right.
So ask, hey, what's going on? And then you need to be willing to listen. That comes the presence part. Can you talk to me? And she might just explode like a volcano, and you need to be willing to listen. Or she might not explode. She might just say, I have been really tired, overwork, overload. I don't feel connected. My body, this. She might feeling self-conscious about her body, or it might be hormones. It might be you, but when you legitimately connect with authenticity, like I care about you.
Right.
I care about us. If I don't know how to communicate, teach me. If a man shows up with that kind of unprideful self, like what kind of words do you need to hear to feel loved and connected? Because for me, might be I love you, and for someone it would be I appreciate you, or I see you, I hear you. I mean, literally, why would we study other things in life and not study our spouses? Why would we be scrolling Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and not scrolling their energetic field to see like how if I say you're my partner for life, people, let's start behaving like we care that much for each other. Or what are we modeling for our kids?
It's interesting that you bring this up, Kenya, because I do want to close this out. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left. And one of the things, because I'm faith-based, that even though our listeners, some of them may not be faith-based, this does register, okay? Because it's in black and white, it's in reading. And a lot of times I hear, well, he wasn't like that in the beginning, or she wasn't like that in the beginning. And I have to share with people that, yes, they were. And here's what
they have
I mean
always
by
been
this.
there. Yeah.
Right. When I refer to faith-based, I look at the book of Judges, where the Israelites wanted a king, but God allowed judges. And one of the judges that were there was Samson. And it's interesting because in chapter 13 or 14, I believe, it's 13, where the angel is talking to the parents about how to raise Samson in the Lord. Okay. Guys, there's no such thing as perfect parents, because you know what? Samson's parents had the best instruction tools, but probably still feel like a failure because what his son had done. And what I mean is in very next chapter, and I find it very interesting that here we have, Jesus was talking about how he was raised as a kid. He was left beside when he was a young kid from his parents. He was 12 years old in the temple preaching. None of that happens in the book of Judges with Samson. Immediately in verse 2, we have Samson, and I'll just paraphrase in Steve's version. Mom and Dad, I just got back from the river. I saw this beautiful, gorgeous woman, Phoenician woman. Go down, bring her back, and let us get married. And I find this interesting for two reasons. What was behind the way that the writer wrote the book of Judges to account for Samson's words at that time? It serves for a purpose. It serves a purpose that you can have a righteous upbringing, but still have a heart turned elsewhere. It showed
100%.
where his heart was. His heart was focused on women, because Samson had 3. He had her, a prostitute, and then he had Delilah, and Delilah deceived him enough to where he died because his idol, because when she cut his hair, the scripture says that Samson never knew the Lord left him. And that's key important in what I'm sharing here, is that as Christ said in scripture, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, is what comes out of him that defiles him. In other words, it's our words. If we listen, a person's heart is going to reveal a lot about who they are.
Yes.
And if a man talks more about himself or a woman talks more about herself, guess what? It's about them. And what happens is we're not slowing down enough to really hone in and focusing and being conscious or aware of what's speaking, because we're being blinded by how gorgeous that person is or what they can do for you to feel safe in that situation. But words, if we're careful about listening, we can pick up on that person's motive behind what's happening. We got about a minute left. What do you think, Kenya?
I'm thinking that everything that you said is on the spot. It is about the words. It's about the beingness. And it's also about you feeling so grounded in what you want. Because if you want this, which is in front of you, then it's not going to last. But if you want the legit connection with each other, then you got to dig deeper and have the legit connection with you, yourself, and God. And from that point, you exuberate the frequency of, I want to build a belonging with you. Now, if you don't have that, make a decision and declare, stand in the authority and say, this is what I want.
Right.
This is what I desire. This is the legacy I want to live for my children. So step into that courage, which is both masculine and feminine. Courage is actually neutral in the spectrum of energy. We both need the courage to really see this is the current situation. Stop blaming each other. Decide to listen. Decide to communicate. Decide to elevate yourself and really become more of what you created to be. And enjoy as many days in this earth as we can have with those that we love.
And what a great segue. Because next week, I want to talk about how, women, last week was women, how we speak to men. This week, how men speak to the women. But when you say love and children together, it's a great podcast and a segue to how do we need to be speaking to our children? Even if we don't have children, it's how do we speak to our children, not on a verbal sense, but also in a physical sense in what we portray. Until next time, thank you very much and God bless.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope to have you back next week. Until then, be safe and be kind.